What if the oldest instruction manual ever written was not meant for the living, but for the dead? 4,000 years ago, inside the pyramid of Pharaoh Unas at Saqqara, priests carved words into limestone that they believed could crack open the wall between life and death. These were the Pyramid Texts, the oldest religious writings ever discovered, and they carried a promise that still haunts Egyptology. If spoken correctly, the dead king would rise from his body and take his seat among the gods. The words did not stay with kings. Over centuries, they changed hands, changed form, and became a document so powerful that an entire civilization staked its afterlife on it. The Egyptians never called it the Book of the Dead. To them it was Per Emhru, the Book of Coming Forth by Day. The title tells you everything. This was never about dying. It was about waking up on the other side. Consider what they believed happened when someone drew their last breath. The soul did not leave as a single thing. It fractured. The Ka, your life force and spiritual double, stayed behind and needed a preserved body to anchor itself, which is why mummification existed. The Ba, your personality, took the shape of a bird with a human face and could travel between the world above and the land below. Your Ren, your true name, was its own form of existence. Erase it and you vanished from reality. Then there was the Akh, the transfigured spirit that emerged only when every piece was reunited. The Akh was the goal. Every spell in every painted scroll across Egypt was built to produce it. The heart stayed in the chest during embalming because Egyptians considered it the seat of thought, memory, and character. Priests removed the brain through the nose and threw it away. They thought it was worthless. Before the tomb was sealed, a ceremony took place that still unsettles scholars. The opening of the mouth. A lector priest used blades and instruments to touch the mummy's lips, eyes, and limbs while chanting spells to restore every sense. Sight, hearing. Speech. Without it, the Ka was locked in a body that could not see or speak. Conscious but imprisoned. The Pyramid Texts date to around 2400 BCE. Over 700 utterances carved in vertical hieroglyphic columns, hymns to Ra, protection against serpents, incantations to lift the king into the heavens. One passage, the Cannibal hymn, describes the pharaoh devouring gods to absorb their strength. For centuries, these words belonged to royalty alone. That changed around 2100 BCE when the Old Kingdom collapsed. Regional governors grabbed power, and the afterlife was no longer a royal privilege. Scribes copied the old spells onto wooden coffins for anyone who could pay. These became the Coffin Texts. Over 1,100 incantations filled with common concerns, spells to reunite with family, spells to avoid forced labor after death, and for the first time, maps. The Book of Two Ways charted the rivers, roads, and dangers of the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. Egyptologists consider these the oldest maps from any known civilization. Woven through these texts was a god whose story changed everything. Osiris had been the first king of Egypt, murdered by his jealous brother Set, who tore his body apart and scattered it across the land. His wife Isis gathered the pieces and brought him back long enough to conceive a son, Horus. But Osiris could not stay among the living. He descended into the Duat and became lord and judge of every soul that followed. If Osiris could conquer death, the Egyptians reasoned, then so could they. By 1550 BCE, the spells reached their final form. Papyrus scrolls painted with vivid scenes and buried with the dead. Nearly 200 spells filled these pages. Wealthy families paid for scrolls stretching 100 feet. Poorer families bought copies with blank spaces for a scribe to add their name. In 1842, Carl Richard Lepsius gave this collection the name we use today, the Book of the Dead. The most famous copy belongs to a scribe named Annie, created around 1250 BCE. The Papyrus of Annie runs 78 feet and sits today in the British Museum. Its painted scenes can stop you cold, even 30 centuries later. What did these scrolls hold? Protection first? The Duat was crawling with threats, serpents, fire lakes, demons called He Who Dances in Blood and Mistress of Anger. Each gate had a guardian, and the only way through was to speak its secret name. Spells 76 through 88 let the dead shapeshift into a golden falcon, a serpent, a lotus, or a crocodile. Each night the soul could join Ra on his solar bark as he sailed through darkness, battling the chaos serpent Apophis before being reborn at dawn. But protection only covered half the book. The other half prepared the soul for a trial no spell could fake, a trial waiting ahead in a place called the Hall of Two Truths. The dead are standing in judgment, and their heart is about to betray them. After fighting through the terrors of the Duat, past the serpents, lakes of flames, and gate guardians whose names alone could stop a soul cold, the traveler arrived at the place every Egyptian both longed for and dreaded, the Hall of Two Truths. Osiris sat enthroned at the far end, wearing the white Atef crown, gripping the crook and flail. His wife Isis, goddess of magic and the one who had reassembled his murdered body, stood behind him with her sister Nephthys, protector of the dead. 42 divine judges lined the walls, each tied to one of Egypt's 42 gnomes. Every one of them waited to hear a confession. Spell 125 required the soul to face each judge, call that judge by name, and declare a specific sin it had never committed. This is the passage that made the Book of the Dead famous. I have not committed sin. I have not robbed with violence. I have not stolen. I have not killed. I have not uttered lies. I have not made anyone weep. I have not been angry without cause. These are the 42 negative confessions, each addressed to a different judge. Farstrider from Heliopolis, Flame Grasper from Karaha, Shadow Eater from the cave. Speaking the name gave the soul authority over that judge. Denying the sin with that authority erased it. What most people miss is that these confessions were never standardized. The scribes tailored them to the person inside the coffin. A general would skip "I have not commanded killing." A magistrate would drop "I have never passed sentence." The list was built so the speaker could say every line without lying. In Egyptian belief, spoken language carried the force of creation. To say "I have not stolen" was to wipe the act from existence. The words did not describe reality. They rewrote it. After the confession came the scene that defined 3,000 years of Egyptian religion. Anubis, jackal-headed god of embalming, led the soul forward and placed its heart on a golden scale. On the other pan sat a single white ostrich feather belonging to Maat. She was more than a goddess. She was a principle. Truth, balance, the invisible order holding the universe together. Every honest act made the heart lighter. Every cruelty, every lie, every act of greed pressed weight onto it. The scale would tell the truth no confession could hide. Egyptians were terrified of this moment. So terrified they created a backup plan, spell 30B carved onto a heart-shaped scarab amulet placed on the mummy's chest. It was addressed not to any god, but to the heart itself. "O my heart, do not stand as a witness against me. Do not oppose me in the tribunal. Do not tip the scale against me." They were begging their own heart not to testify. Thoth, ibis-headed god of wisdom, stood at the scale recording the verdict with a reed brush and palette. He would announce the result to the great Enid, the 9 chief gods of Heliopolis who served as the supreme divine council. Behind him crouched Ammit, who had the jaws of a crocodile, torso of a lion, haunches of a hippopotamus. She was not worshipped. She was a consequence. If the heart tipped heavy, she swallowed it. The soul was annihilated. Egyptians called this the second death and feared it more than any suffering. No punishment, no hellfire, just nothing. You stopped existing and no one remembered you had lived. If the heart balanced, Thoth declared the soul true of voice. Osiris approved passage, and in some versions, his son Horus personally escorted the soul from the hall. One last test waited. At Lily Lake stood a ferryman named Hroth-Hef. He who looks behind him, foul-tempered and deliberately insulting. The soul had to stay calm and courteous no matter what he said. Lose your temper, and you stayed on the bank forever. Those who kept their composure were rowed across to Sekhet Aru, the field of reeds. Picture the richest stretch of the Nile Delta doubled in every direction. Grain fields that never failed. Cool water, endless sunlight. The dead farmed, hunted, ate, and feasted alongside the gods. They found their families, their friends, even their animals waiting for them. Everything lost to death was returned in full. Spell 6 handled the labor. Small figurines called Shabtis, buried with the body, would spring to life and do the work. Amulets guarded the soul even here. The Djed pillar for stability, the Tayet knot for protection, the Eye of Horus for healing, each placed at a precise spot on the mummy's wrappings, each charged by a spell from the scroll. This system held Egypt together across 3 millennia, from the pyramids to Cleopatra. The Book of the Dead was never one book by one author. It was a living tradition carried forward by generations of priests, each one reshaping a single vision, that death is a door, not a wall, and the only key is who you were when you were alive. The feather is still on the scale.